Leave this building now! Get your filthy hands off my property! Security, I want this woman arrested!" The CEO tore into the janitor woman like she was nothing, until the door behind her opened and the wealthiest man in the city walked in. His eyes locked on the trembling CEO, and the air turned dangerous. What he said next flipped the entire building upside down. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're watching from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Now let's continue." David Westbrook's voice thundered through the executive lobby, and I felt every pair of eyes turn toward me. His face was red with rage, his finger pointing at me like I was something disgusting he'd found on his shoe. "I don't want people like you contaminating my company. Do you understand me? People like you don't belong here." His hand clamped around my arm, his grip tight enough to bruise, and he started dragging me toward the entrance. Dozens of employees stood frozen, watching their CEO physically assault a janitor in the middle of the workday. Some had their phones out, recording. Others looked away, ashamed but too afraid to intervene. I could have fought back. I could have revealed everything right then. But I stayed calm, reached into my pocket, and pulled out my phone. My fingers were steady as I made a single call. "It's time," I said quietly. Westbrook snatched the phone from my hand and threw it across the marble floor. "You're done here. You're finished. Security is going to make sure you never step foot in this building again. Then I'm going to make sure you never work anywhere in this city. Do you hear me?" That's when the elevator doors opened. A man stepped out, and the entire lobby went silent. He was tall, commanding, dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. His dark eyes scanned the room with the kind of quiet authority that made even Westbrook's security guards freeze mid-step. Every employee in that lobby recognized him instantly. James Richardson, tech billionaire, founder of Richardson Global Enterprises, one of the most powerful men in the industry. And he was looking directly at me. Westbrook's grip on my arm loosened slightly as recognition dawned on his face. "Mr. Richardson, he stammered. "This is unexpected. I wasn't aware you were visiting today." James didn't acknowledge him. He walked straight toward me, his expression a mixture of fury and concern. When he spoke, his voice was ice cold. "That's my wife you just insulted, Westbrook." The room erupted in shocked whispers. Westbrook's hand fell away from my arm like I'd suddenly caught fire. His face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and then pure panic. "My name is Maya, and the day I was told to leave that building was the day everything changed. What I'm about to tell you sounds impossible, but I promise you every single word of this is true. Before we dive into this story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you're not going to believe the twists that are coming. If you've ever been treated like you didn't belong, like you were less than human because of how you looked, drop a comment below. Trust me, you're going to want to hear how this all played out. So let me take you back to where it all began, 3 weeks before that moment when my entire world exploded in that lobby. The day we decided to go undercover. I was sitting in the conference room of Richardson Global's headquarters, looking at a file that made my stomach turn. Anonymous complaints. Dozens of them. All from employees at Westbrook Technologies, all describing the same thing. A pattern of discrimination so systematic, so deliberate, that it couldn't be ignored. My husband, James Richardson, sat across from me, his jaw tight as he reviewed the same documents. Richardson Global was considering a $500 million acquisition of Westbrook Technologies. It would be our biggest deal of the year. But James had built his company on a foundation of ethical business practices. He wouldn't finalize any acquisition without knowing exactly what he was buying. These complaints, I said, tapping the folder. They're not isolated incidents. This is company culture. This is policy. James looked up at me, and I saw the anger in his eyes. The same anger I felt. We need proof. Real, undeniable proof. If we go to them with accusations based on anonymous complaints, they'll lawyer up and bury everything. That's when the idea hit me. What if I went in? I said. Undercover. Not as Maya Richardson, equity partner at Richardson Global. Not as your wife. Just as someone they'd never see as a threat. James immediately shook his head. Absolutely not. That's too dangerous. But I was already thinking it through. I'm a Harvard Business School graduate. I've worked in corporate reform for 8 years. I know exactly what to look for. And I know how to document it properly. I could get you everything you need to make a case. Maya, these complaints mention hostile work environment, racial discrimination, wrongful termination. If they're willing to do that to their own employees, what do you think they'd do if they discovered you were investigating them? Then they won't discover it, I said firmly. I'll go in as a janitor. Invisible labor. People like Westbrook don't even see janitors as human beings. They'll say things in front of me they'd never say in front of someone they considered an equal. James was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him weighing the risks against the necessity. Finally, he spoke. 3 weeks. You document everything you can, and then we pull you out, whether we have enough evidence or not. You wear a body camera at all times. My security team monitors your location every second, and the moment I think you're in danger, we end it immediately. I reached across the table and took his hand. 3 weeks. That's all I need. Looking back now, I had no idea how right I was. 3 weeks was exactly how long it would take for David Westbrook to reveal his true nature. 3 weeks for me to see the depth of cruelty he was capable of. 3 weeks for me to gather evidence that would destroy his career and transform an entire company. But first, I had to become someone else entirely. The transformation began the next morning. I stood in front of the mirror in our penthouse, looking at a version of myself I barely recognized. No makeup except a touch of concealer, hair pulled back in a simple style, clothes from a discount store, worn but clean. A name tag that read, Marie Wilson. James stood behind me, and I could see the worry in his reflection. You can still change your mind, he said softly. I turned to face him. You read those complaints. You saw what these people have been going through. Years of discrimination, harassment, wrongful termination, all because of the color of their skin. If we don't do this, if we don't get proof, Westbrook will keep destroying lives. He pulled me close, his arms wrapped around me like he could protect me from what was coming. 3 weeks, he repeated, not a day more. 3 weeks, I agreed. But I needed more than just a disguise. I needed a complete identity. Richardson Global's security team spent the next 48 hours building my cover. Marie Wilson, 32 years old, previous janitorial experience at various office buildings. References that would check out if anyone called, a social security number that existed in every database that mattered. They also equipped me with technology that would capture everything. A body camera disguised as a button on my uniform, audio recording equipment hidden in my work badge, a panic button sewn into the lining of my pocket that would alert James's security team if I needed immediate extraction. The legal team briefed me on recording laws. Everything I captured would be admissible in court. Every conversation, every interaction, every moment of discrimination could be used as evidence. On my last night before going in, James and I sat on our balcony overlooking the city. Westbrook Technologies was out there somewhere, a building full of people who had no idea their world was about to change. "Promise me something," James said, taking my hand. Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me that if it gets too dangerous, if you feel threatened in any way, you'll get out immediately." "I promise," I said. "But James, we both know how important this is. Richardson Global has the power to change corporate culture across the entire industry. If we can expose what's happening at Westbrook, document it, prove it beyond any doubt, we can set a new standard for every acquisition we make." He nodded slowly. "That's exactly why I'm worried. You're not just investigating a company. You're challenging a system that's been in place for decades. Systems fight back when you try to change them." "Then it's a good thing I'm not easily intimidated," I said, squeezing his hand. The next morning, I walked into Westbrook Technologies for my first day as a janitor. The building was impressive from the outside. Steel and glass, modern architecture, with a lobby that screamed success and innovation. A large sign near the entrance proclaimed Westbrook Technologies, where diversity drives innovation. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so tragic. I checked in at the security desk, showing my new employee credentials to a guard who barely glanced at me. He handed me a badge that said Service Personnel and pointed toward a service elevator at the back of the lobby. "Not that one," he said when I started toward the main elevators. "Service staff uses the back entrance." Of course they do, I thought, but I just nodded and headed where he'd pointed. The service elevator took me down to the basement level, where I met Carlos Mendez, the janitorial supervisor. He was in his late 50s, with kind eyes and a warm smile that immediately put me at ease. "Marie Wilson?" he asked, checking his clipboard. "Welcome to Westbrook. I'll be training you for the next few days, then you'll be on your own. We're short-staffed, so you'll be covering the executive floors, 3rd through 5th. The executive floors. Perfect. That was exactly where I needed to be." Carlos showed me around the janitorial facilities. Separate break room from the rest of the employees. Separate bathrooms. Separate entrance and exit. It was like a completely different company existing within the same building. As he explained my duties, I met the other members of the janitorial staff, mostly people of color, mostly immigrants or first-generation Americans. All of them seemed tired, worn down by something more than just physical labor. During my lunch break on that first day, I sat with a woman named Keisha, who worked in accounting. She'd come down to the janitorial break room to use the microwave because the one on her floor was broken. "How long have you worked here?" I asked. 5 years, she said, and something in her voice made me look up. 5 years of watching less qualified people get promoted over me. 5 years of being told I'm not quite ready for leadership while they hire external candidates with half my experience. "Have you talked to HR?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. HR is part of the problem. They protect the company, not the employees. I filed a complaint once about being passed over for a promotion. 2 months later, I was written up for the first time in my career. Coincidence? I don't think so. I wanted to tell her right then that help was coming, that justice was coming, but I couldn't break my cover, not on day one, so I just listened, and I made sure my camera captured every word. That night, back at the hotel suite where James was waiting, we reviewed the footage together. His expression grew darker with every minute. "It's worse than we thought," he said finally. "This isn't just isolated discrimination. This is systematic oppression." "I know," I said, "and we're going to document every single instance. By the time we're done, there won't be any doubt about what's happening here." James pulled me close. "I'm proud of you, and I'm terrified for you. Both things can be true at the same time. Both things were true. And over the next 3 weeks, I would discover just how much worse it could get. But I would also discover something else. I would discover that when you give people a voice, when you shine a light on injustice, when you refuse to look away from what's uncomfortable, you can change everything." David Westbrook was about to learn that lesson, and it was going to cost him everything he had. The transformation was complete by the time I stepped off the bus 3 blocks from Westbrook Technologies. Gone was Maya Richardson, Harvard Business School graduate and equity partner at one of the most successful private equity firms in the country. In her place was Marie Wilson, a woman just trying to make ends meet with a janitorial job. I'd practiced this version of myself in the mirror for days. The way I walked, slightly more hunched, less confident. The way I held my head, avoiding eye contact. The way I spoke, softer, more deferential. It felt wrong, playing into the very stereotypes I was there to expose. But it was necessary. People like David Westbrook didn't see janitors as threats. They saw them as furniture, background noise, invisible. That invisibility was going to be his downfall. The employee entrance was around the back of the building, exactly as the employee handbook had described. A plain metal door with a card reader and a small sign that read, "Service personnel only." I swiped the badge Carlos had given me during my brief orientation the day before, and the lock clicked open. The basement level was a stark contrast to the gleaming lobby I'd seen during my initial reconnaissance. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. The walls were painted a dull beige that had probably been white decades ago. The air smelled like industrial cleaner and something vaguely musty. "Marie!" Carlos's voice called out from the supply room. "Right on time." "I like that." I smiled and headed toward him. "Morning, Carlos. Ready to learn the ropes." He handed me a cart loaded with cleaning supplies, rags, and a vacuum cleaner. "You'll be covering floors 3 through 5 today. Executive offices. They like everything spotless up there, so pay extra attention to the bathrooms and the conference rooms." "And Marie?" "Yes." His expression turned serious. "Keep your head down up there. Don't talk to the executives unless they talk to you first. Don't touch anything on their desks. Don't make eye contact. Just do your work and stay invisible. Trust me, it's easier that way." I felt the body camera hidden in my uniform badge capture every word. This was it. The culture of fear and invisibility Carlos was describing wasn't accidental. It was designed. "I understand," I said quietly. "Invisible. Got it." The service elevator was smaller than the main ones, and it made a grinding noise as it climbed. When the doors opened on the 3rd floor, I stepped into a different world. Plush carpeting, original artwork on the walls, the faint scent of expensive coffee wafting from a break room that looked more like a luxury lounge, glass-walled offices with ergonomic chairs and standing desks. This wasn't just nice. This was opulent. I started with the bathrooms, as Carlos had instructed. The executive washroom had marble countertops, automatic soap dispensers, and hand towels that felt softer than the sheets on my bed at home. As I cleaned, I heard voices approaching in the hallway. "Did you see Johnson's proposal?" A man's voice, dismissive and sharp, completely unrealistic. "But what do you expect?" The other voice laughed. Maybe if he spent less time on his cultural initiatives and more time on actual business strategy. I froze, my hand still on the paper towel dispenser. Through the crack in the door, I could see 2 men in expensive suits. One was checking his phone. The other was adjusting his tie in the reflection of a glass wall. "I thought we were committed to diversity," the first voice said with heavy sarcasm. "Isn't that what the website says? Where diversity drives innovation." They both laughed. "The board wants optics, not results," the second man said. "Hire enough minorities to look good in the annual report, keep them in positions where they can't do any real damage, and move on. It's not complicated." My camera was recording every word, every laugh, every dismissive gesture. They walked away, still chuckling, completely unaware that I'd been standing just a few feet away. Invisible, just like Carlos had said. I finished the bathrooms and moved to the offices. Most were empty this early, but a few executives had already arrived. I knocked softly on each door before entering, keeping my eyes down, working quickly. In one office, a woman sat behind her desk, typing furiously on her laptop. She didn't acknowledge my presence at all. I emptied her trash, dusted her shelves, and was almost to the door when she spoke. "You missed a spot." She didn't even look up from her screen, just pointed vaguely at the corner of her desk. I looked. There was no spot. The desk was immaculate. "Sorry, ma'am," I said softly. "I'll get that." "See that you do. And close the door quietly when you leave. Some of us are trying to work." I nodded, pretended to wipe the non-existent spot, and left. The camera had caught it all. The dismissive tone, the unnecessary criticism, the complete lack of basic courtesy. By mid-morning, I'd worked my way to the 5th floor, the executive level. This was where David Westbrook's office was located, along with the other C-suite executives. I was cleaning a conference room when I heard raised voices from down the hall. A door slammed, and a moment later, a young Latino man walked past, his face flushed with anger or embarrassment or both. He didn't see me as he headed toward the elevators. A few minutes later, I was in the hallway when David Westbrook himself emerged from his office. He was on his phone, his voice loud and annoyed. "I don't care what the optics are," he said. "We can't keep lowering our standards just to hit some arbitrary diversity quota. I built this company on excellence, and I'm not going to compromise that for political correctness." He walked right past me, so close I could have touched him, and he never even glanced in my direction. I was furniture, a fixture, nothing. "The plan is simple," he continued. "We go through the motions, put out the right press releases, attend a few charity events, but at the end of the day, we hire and promote based on merit, real merit, not affirmative action nonsense." He disappeared around a corner, and I stood there, my heart pounding. The camera had captured it all. His voice, his words, his complete comfort saying these things in a semi-public space because he assumed no one who mattered could hear him. During my lunch break, I went down to the janitorial break room. Carlos was there, along with 3 other janitors, an older black woman named Betty, a young Somali man named Ahmed, and a middle-aged Filipino woman named Rosa. "How was your first morning?" Carlos asked. "Interesting," I said carefully. "I'm still learning the layout." Betty snorted. "Interesting is one word for it. Dehumanizing is another." Rosa nodded. 15 years I've worked here. 15 years, and I can count on one hand the number of executives who've said good morning to me. We're ghosts to them." "It's gotten worse," Ahmed added quietly. "When I started 2 years ago, it wasn't like this. But the last year especially, it's like they don't even pretend anymore." I pulled out my lunch, a simple sandwich I'd packed that morning. What changed a year ago? Betty and Carlos exchanged a look. "Westbrook got full control," Betty said. "The previous CEO, Mr. Patterson, he at least tried to maintain some standards of decency. But when he retired and Westbrook took over, things shifted. Fast." "How so?" I asked, making sure my recorder was capturing this. Carlos leaned forward. Patterson had diversity initiatives that actually meant something. Mentorship programs, fair promotion reviews. He even had town halls where regular employees could ask questions. Westbrook shut all that down within his first month. Said we needed to focus on core business instead of social experiments. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from James. "Everything okay?" I typed back quickly. "All good. Getting a lot." The afternoon was more of the same. I witnessed a supervisor berating a black employee for being 2 minutes late, while a white employee strolled in 15 minutes late to no comment. I overheard conversations in the break room where executives casually used coded language to dismiss minority candidates. I documented every instance, every interaction, every moment. But the most damning moment came at the end of the day. I was cleaning the executive floor, working my way toward Westbrook's office. His door was slightly ajar and I could hear him on the phone. I slowed my cart, positioning myself where I could hear clearly but wouldn't be visible. "Look, I understand the board wants us to appear more inclusive," he was saying. "But there are ways to manage this. We can hire a few diversity candidates for lower-level positions, make sure they're visible in our marketing materials. But leadership? C-suite? That's where we can't afford to compromise." There was a pause as the other person spoke. "I'm not being discriminatory," Westbrook continued, his tone defensive. "I'm being practical. We need people who fit our culture, who understand how we do business. And let's be honest, most of these diversity candidates don't have that background. They don't have the same networks, the same education, the same, let's call it polish." Another pause. "Fine, we can hire a few for middle management. Token positions, but I'm telling you right now, they won't last. They'll either quit because they can't keep up, or we'll manage them out during the next restructuring. Either way, the problem solves itself." I felt sick to my stomach. This wasn't just casual prejudice. This was calculated, systematic discrimination. A deliberate strategy to maintain a homogeneous leadership team while creating the appearance of diversity. Watch where you're going. The sharp voice snapped me back to the present. I'd been so focused on listening to Westbrook that I hadn't noticed an executive approaching. I'd accidentally bumped my cart against the wall. "These people have no awareness," he muttered, loud enough for me to hear but quiet enough to maintain deniability. He shook his head and walked away. My camera caught it. Every dismissive word, every condescending gesture. That evening, back at the hotel suite, James and I reviewed the day's footage. I watched his jaw tighten as the recordings played. When we got to Westbrook's phone conversation, his hands clenched into fists. "This is worse than the complaints suggested," he said quietly. "This isn't just a few bad actors. This is company policy." "I know," I said, "and we have 2 more weeks to document the full extent of it." James turned to me, his expression torn between anger at what we were uncovering and fear for my safety. "Are you sure you want to continue? We already have enough for a strong case." I shook my head. Strong isn't enough. We need overwhelming. We need undeniable. Because men like Westbrook, they have lawyers and money and connections. If we're going to do this, we have to make it impossible for him to talk his way out. James pulled me close. 2 more weeks, he said. Not a day more. 2 more weeks, I agreed. I had no idea how much worse it was going to get, how the casual dismissals would escalate to public humiliation, how the coded language would give way to explicit racism, how David Westbrook's mask of professionalism would crack completely. But I was about to find out. Because in the world of corporate discrimination, there's always a breaking point. A moment when the people in power stop pretending to be decent and show you exactly who they really are. For David Westbrook, that moment was coming, and my camera would be there to capture every second of it. Week 1 turned into a masterclass in institutional racism, the kind that's carefully disguised in corporate language but impossible to miss once you know what to look for. By day 3, I'd developed a routine. Arrive early, before most executives got in. Clean the offices quickly and efficiently. Position myself near conference rooms and break areas during peak conversation times. Stay invisible. Listen. Document everything. The body camera hidden in my badge captured it all. The audio recorder in my name tag picked up conversations I couldn't film. And at night, James and I would sit in our hotel suite, cataloging each incident, building a case so comprehensive that no lawyer in the world could explain it away. On Wednesday morning, I met Keisha properly for the first time. I'd seen her around, a young black woman in her late 20s who worked in the accounting department. She was always dressed professionally, always carried herself with quiet dignity, and always looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. We ended up in the janitorial break room at the same time. She was heating up her lunch in the microwave, and I was taking my 15-minute break. "The microwave on our floor is broken again," she said. Not really to me, just talking to fill the silence. "Third time this month, but maintenance says it's not a priority." I nodded sympathetically. "How long have you worked here?" 5 years. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. 5 long years. Something in her tone made me look up. "You don't sound happy about that." She glanced at the doorway, making sure we were alone, then sat down across from me. "Can I tell you something? I don't even know your name." "Marie," I said. "Marie Wilson. Keisha." She extended her hand, and I shook it. "Look, Marie, I don't usually talk about this, but you seem nice, and maybe you should know what you're getting into here." "I'm listening." She took a deep breath. "When I got hired, I was so excited. Top of my class at Howard University, CPA certification, great references. They told me there was room for growth, that Westbrook Technologies valued talent and promoted from within. I believed them. What happened? I've been passed over for promotion 7 times in 5 years. 7 times. Meanwhile, I've watched white colleagues with less experience, lower performance ratings, and fewer qualifications move up. There's a guy in management now who I trained. I literally taught him how to use our accounting software, and now he's my supervisor." "Did you talk to HR?" She laughed again, that same bitter sound. "Oh, I talked to HR. Filed a formal complaint about 18 months ago. You know what happened? 2 weeks later, I got my first negative performance review ever. Suddenly I was not meeting expectations. My communication style was too aggressive. I was not a culture fit." "Culture fit," I repeated, making sure my recorder caught the phrase. I'd seen it in the documents. It was code, a way to reject qualified candidates without saying the real reason. "It means you're not white enough," Keisha said bluntly. "Or you don't laugh at the right jokes. Or you don't play golf at the right country club. It means whatever they need it to mean to justify keeping you down. Why do you stay?" She looked at me like I'd asked the world's dumbest question. "Because I have student loans. Because I have rent. Because jobs aren't exactly falling from the sky. And if I quit, they'll make sure my reputation follows me." She paused. "And because part of me keeps hoping things will change, that someone will finally see what's happening here and do something about it." I wanted to tell her right then, to explain that someone was doing something, that justice was coming, but I couldn't break cover, not yet. Instead, I just said, "I'm sorry, that's not right." "No," she agreed, "it's not, but it's reality." That afternoon, I witnessed the pattern Keisha had described play out in real time. I was cleaning the 5th floor conference room when an executive meeting let out. 2 people emerged, a white man in his 30s named Brad, and a black woman in her 40s named Diane. I'd learned their names from the nameplates on their offices. "Brad, can I talk to you about the promotion?" Diane asked. "I submitted my application 3 weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything back." Brad looked uncomfortable. "Oh yeah, about that. Look, Diane, you're a great team player, but we're looking for someone with a more strategic mindset for this role. Someone who can think bigger picture. I have 15 years of experience in strategic planning," Diane said, her voice carefully controlled. "I've led 3 major initiatives that increased revenue by a combined 32%. I have an MBA from Wharton. What specific qualifications am I missing?" "It's not about qualifications on paper," Brad said. "It's about fit, leadership presence. You know." He walked away, leaving Diane standing there. Her hands were shaking slightly, and I could see her blinking back tears. My camera had captured the entire exchange. The vague rejection, the moving goalposts, the leadership presence comment that really meant she didn't look like what they expected a leader to look like. Later that day, I saw the same Brad having a very different conversation with a young white man I'd seen around the office. "Kyle, buddy, I wanted to let you know we're moving you into that senior analyst position. I know you've only been here 18 months, but you've got that spark, you know, real leadership potential." Kyle couldn't have been more than 25. His resume, which I'd seen on someone's desk earlier, showed a bachelor's degree from a state school and one previous job that lasted less than a year. But he had leadership presence. He had spark. He looked like Brad. By Thursday, I documented 12 separate incidents of qualified minority employees being passed over, criticized for non-existent problems, or held to different standards than their white counterparts. A black employee written up for being 2 minutes late when white employees routinely arrived 15 minutes late with no consequences. A Latina employee told her presentation style was too passionate, while a white male colleague was praised for his energy despite presenting in an identical manner. An Asian employee's accent mentioned as a communication challenge in his performance review, despite his English being flawless and his written reports being the best in his department. Each incident alone might have been explained away, might have been dismissed as a misunderstanding or an isolated case of bad management. But together, they formed an undeniable pattern. On Friday, I had my first direct encounter with David Westbrook that went beyond him walking past me like I was furniture. I was cleaning the hallway outside his office when he emerged with another executive discussing a recent hiring decision. "We got 300 applications for the position," the other executive was saying. "Narrowed it down to 5 finalists, 2 internal candidates, 3 external. Very diverse pool." Westbrook stopped walking, and I instinctively moved closer to my cleaning cart, trying to be even more invisible. "Define diverse," Westbrook said. 2 women, 1 black, 1 Asian, 1 Hispanic male, 1 white male with a veteran background. And one of the internal candidates is a woman who's been with us 4 years. Westbrook was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. "Look, I appreciate the effort to be inclusive, but let's be realistic. The white male candidate, the veteran, what's his background? Yale undergrad, Stanford MBA, 5 years at McKinsey. Hire him. But sir, the Hispanic candidate has nearly identical credentials. Plus he speaks 4 languages and has direct experience in the Latin American markets we're trying to break into. Which is great for a translator," Westbrook said dismissively. "But we're talking about a leadership role. We need someone who understands our culture, who can represent us to clients and partners, someone who looks the part." I accidentally bumped my cart against the wall, and both men turned to look at me. "Watch where you're going," Westbrook snapped. "These people have no awareness." He said it like I wasn't standing right there, like I was a piece of equipment that had malfunctioned rather than a human being who could hear every word. The other executive looked uncomfortable but said nothing. They walked away, continuing their conversation in lower tones. My hands were shaking as I steadied the cart. Not from fear, from rage. These people, someone who looks the part. The casual dehumanization of it all was staggering. That evening, James and I sat in silence for a long time after reviewing the day's footage. He said it. James finally spoke. On camera, clear as day. Hiring discrimination based purely on appearance and race. I nodded. And that executive didn't even push back. Just accepted it. How many more incidents like this do we need? I thought about Keisha, about Diane, about all the people whose careers had been derailed, whose potential had been dismissed, whose humanity had been ignored. More, I said. We need more. Because this isn't just about one hiring decision or one racist comment. This is about proving that the entire system is corrupt, that it's not a few bad actors, It's policy. It's culture. It's intentional. James reached for my hand. You're amazing, you know that. What you're doing, the risk you're taking, it's incredible. I'm just doing what's right. Most people wouldn't. Most people would look the other way. That's exactly why people like Westbrook think they can get away with this, I said, because they're counting on everyone looking the other way. Week 2 began with an incident that made everything before it seem almost tame by comparison. I was cleaning the third-floor break room when I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. 3 executives were having coffee, talking about an employee named Miguel who worked in operations. "Did you see his email about the policy change?" one of them said. "Maybe if he spent less time on breaks and more time working, he'd understand the rationale." The others laughed. "You know how they are," another added. "Always looking for something to complain about." I finished the break room and made my way downstairs, where I found Miguel in the lobby. He was young, maybe late 20s, with a careful, professional demeanor and eyes that looked exhausted. Later that day, I witnessed Miguel in a meeting where Westbrook himself was present. Miguel had asked a legitimate question about a new policy that didn't make operational sense. Westbrook's response was devastating. "Maybe if you spent less time questioning management and more time focusing on your actual job, you'd understand these decisions are above your pay grade." The room went silent. Miguel's face flushed with embarrassment. No one came to his defense. No one pointed out that his question was valid. No one mentioned that asking questions was supposed to be encouraged in their culture of innovation. Miguel left the meeting early, and I saw him in the bathroom 10 minutes later, his hands braced against the sink, his head bowed. He didn't see me in the stall, and I stayed quiet, giving him privacy for his moment of humiliation. My camera had caught everything. Westbrook's condescension, the room full of people who said nothing, Miguel's legitimate question dismissed with racial undertones that everyone heard, but no one acknowledged. That night, James's anger had transformed into something colder, more determined. "We need to start thinking about the end game," he said. "How do we use all this evidence for maximum impact?" I'd been thinking about that too. A lawsuit would be important. Criminal charges where applicable. But we needed more. "Public exposure," I said. "Not just legal consequences, social consequences. We need to make this so public, so undeniable, that every company in America has to look at their own practices and ask themselves if they're doing the same thing." A press conference? Eventually. But first, I want to confront Westbrook directly. I want him to see my face, know my name, understand that he underestimated me because of my skin color, and that his underestimation is what's going to destroy him. James smiled, that cold, calculated smile I'd seen when he was negotiating a particularly complex deal. "You want to watch him realize what he's done. I want him to understand that actions have consequences, that you can't build a career on crushing other people and expect no one to fight back. Then we'll give him exactly that." As week 2 progressed, I gathered more evidence. I witnessed termination meetings that were clearly pretextual. I documented conversations where executives openly discussed keeping certain types of people out of leadership. I recorded performance reviews where identical work was praised in white employees and criticized in employees of color. But the piece that tied everything together came from an unexpected source. Her name was Patricia Brennan, and she was the Director of Human Resources. I'd seen her around, always impeccably dressed, always professionally pleasant, and always somehow present when problematic decisions were being made. On Wednesday of week 2, I was cleaning the HR offices late in the evening. Patricia's door was open, and she was on the phone, her voice low, but not low enough. "I understand your concerns," she was saying, "but documentation is key. We can't just terminate her. We need a paper trail showing performance issues." There was a pause as the other person spoke. I know she doesn't actually have performance issues. That's not the point. The point is creating a legal justification. Write her up for something minor. Attendance, tone in meetings, anything that gives us cause. Do it consistently for the next quarter, then we can move forward with termination. Another pause. She filed a discrimination complaint. That makes her a liability. We need to manage her out before she becomes a bigger problem. My hands stopped moving. Patricia wasn't just complicit. She was orchestrating the discrimination, creating false documentation, building cases against employees who dared to complain. This was HR as a weapon, not a protection. I finished cleaning and left quickly, but my camera had captured every word. This was the evidence that showed discrimination wasn't just individual bias. It was systematic, institutional, planned and executed from the top down. That night, James and I added Patricia's conversation to the growing mountain of evidence. We can get her on fraud, James said. False documentation, conspiracy to discriminate. She's looking at criminal charges. Good, I said. She enabled all of this. Every person Westbrook hurt, she helped him do it. 1 more week, James said. 1 more week and we pull you out. I nodded, but I knew what I needed. I needed the final piece. The smoking gun that would make everything else undeniable. I needed David Westbrook to show everyone exactly who he was. And I was about to get my chance. Week 3 began with 43 documented incidents and hours of recordings. Our legal team confirmed we had enough for a devastating lawsuit. But I wanted more. I wanted David Westbrook to expose himself so completely that no lawyer could explain it away. This is the last week, James said Monday morning. Friday, we pull you out regardless. I know. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise. But James, we're so close. That's what worries me. By midday, tension crackled through the executive floors. I overheard 2 board members discussing Richardson Global's due diligence happening this week. If this deal falls through, we're finished, one said. My pulse quickened. Westbrook was under maximum pressure. People make mistakes under pressure. That afternoon, I positioned myself outside the conference room where Westbrook met with his board. The diversity initiatives Richardson requires are non-negotiable, Jennifer Caldwell's voice said. We need to show progress. Fine, Westbrook snapped. We'll hire a few diversity candidates for lower positions, marketing photos. That should satisfy them. They're talking about a full audit. Internal and external candidates reviewed by independent consultants. Then we'll put on a show. Hire consultants who'll tell us what we want to hear. Create the right paperwork. Once the deal closes, we'll restructure. Problem solves itself. That's fraud, Robert Pierce, the CFO, said. They won't discover anything if we're smart about it. My camera recorded every word. This wasn't just discrimination. This was conspiracy to commit securities fraud. I started making myself more visible. Cleaning near his office during calls, being present in hallways during meetings. By Thursday, he'd started really noticing me, his jaw tightening when I was nearby. Good. I wanted his frustration to have a target. Thursday afternoon, Westbrook entered the executive break room with potential investors. I stayed at the far end, working quietly. Our facilities are well maintained, Westbrook said. An investor nodded. Good to see. You keep your facilities well maintained. He was looking directly at me. Not the physical space, the people who cleaned it. Me. I was a facility to be maintained. We have people for that, Westbrook said dismissively. Unfortunately. The word hung in the air. Unfortunately. The investor looked uncomfortable but said nothing. My camera captured everything. After they left, I watched Westbrook speak to his assistant. Did they seem positive? Mr. Bull, Kensington seemed uncomfortable. Maybe something in the break room. Westbrook's face darkened. He looked down the hallway where I'd been working. His eyes narrowed. Friday morning, I arrived to find the building tense. Richardson Global's team was doing their final walkthrough, make or break day. By late morning, I was cleaning the executive lobby when Westbrook emerged with yesterday's investors. Their body language was wrong. "Thank you for your time," one said stiffly. "We'll be in touch." They left quickly. I watched Westbrook's face cycle through confusion, anger, rage. His hands clenched into fists. Then his eyes found me. I was cleaning windows near reception, but it was too late. I'd become the focal point of his frustration. He walked toward me, footsteps sharp on marble. "You," he said, "why are you always around?" "I'm assigned to the executive floors, sir. Just doing my job. Your job." His voice rose. "Do you have any idea how important the work is that happens here?" "Yes, sir. Do you? Because it looks like you're more interested in eavesdropping than cleaning." The lobby went quiet. Employees watching, phones recording. "I'm not eavesdropping, sir. I'm cleaning." "That's all," he mimicked. "You people always have excuses." "I don't understand what you mean, sir." "Of course you don't. Let me make this simple. This building is for professionals, people who belong here, people who understand excellence. I belong here. I have every right to work here." "Rights?" He laughed. "I have the right to maintain standards. I have the right to expect a certain caliber of person representing my brand. I'm a janitor, sir. I'm not representing anything. That's exactly my point. People like you should be grateful for any job. Instead, you're contaminating my company, making my investors uncomfortable, acting like you belong in spaces you have no business being in." "People like me?" My voice steady. "What do you mean by that, sir?" He stepped closer, face red. "Don't play stupid. People who don't understand their place, who don't know when they're not wanted." The lobby was silent. Multiple phones recording. Security frozen. "Leave this building now," he screamed. "Get your filthy hands off my property. Security, I want this woman arrested." He grabbed my arm, fingers digging in. "I don't want people like you contaminating my company." He started dragging me. I reached calmly into my pocket and made a single call. "It's time." Westbrook snatched my phone and threw it across the marble. "You're done. You're finished." The elevator chimed. James Richardson stepped out, flanked by lawyers. His face was controlled fury as he took in the scene. He walked toward us with measured steps. The lobby held its breath. Westbrook's grip loosened. "Mr. Richardson," he stammered, "there's been a misunderstanding." James's eyes met mine. "Are you okay?" I nodded. He turned to Westbrook, voice ice cold. "That's my wife you just insulted, Westbrook." The lobby remained frozen, then exploded with gasps and frantic phone cameras clicking. Westbrook's hand fell away from my arm. His mouth opened and closed, searching for words that wouldn't come. The confident CEO had vanished, replaced by a man watching his world collapse. "Your wife?" he finally choked out. "That's impossible. She's just a—" "Just what?" James asked quietly. "Finish that sentence, Westbrook." I reached up and removed my janitor's smock. Underneath was a silk blouse that cost more than Marie Wilson could afford in 6 months. I pulled my credentials from my bag and laid them on the reception desk one by one. "My name is Maya Richardson. I'm an equity partner at Richardson Global Enterprises and a licensed attorney specializing in corporate compliance." The lobby erupted. Carlo stood near the back, hand over his mouth, tears forming. Keisha was recording, her face showing shock and vindication. I removed my badge and held up the tiny camera hidden behind the nameplate. For 3 weeks, I've documented systematic discrimination at this company. Every conversation, every decision, every time someone said things they thought no one important could hear. Westbrook stepped back, nearly stumbling. This is illegal. Entrapment. My lawyers will destroy this. Catherine Mills stepped forward. Actually, Mr. Westbrook, every recording was legal. One-party consent jurisdiction, and your own security cameras captured most of it anyway. James's security team set up a laptop on the reception desk. The first video began playing. Westbrook's voice, clear and damning. We can hire a few diversity candidates for lower-level positions, make sure they're in marketing materials, but leadership, C-suite, that's where we can't afford to compromise. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The second clip showed the board meeting. We'll put on a show, hire consultants who'll tell us what we want to hear. Once the deal closes, we'll restructure. Problem solves itself. The third was yesterday's break room. We have people for that, unfortunately. With each clip, Westbrook shrank. The powerful man who'd grabbed my arm was disappearing. Carlos stepped forward. You're really Maya Richardson? I am. And everything you told me, I documented. Keisha was crying. You heard my story about being passed over 7 times. All of it. Every promotion decision in your department for 3 years. The pattern is undeniable. Voices overlap now. You saw Miguel's humiliation, Jerome's wrongful termination, the pay disparities. All of it, I confirmed. 43 incidents. Every violation of federal law. Westbrook tried once more. Let's discuss this privately. A settlement. Whatever you want. James stepped back. We're past private discussions, Westbrook. Security guards approached, uncertain. James's team blocked the exits smoothly. No one leaves until this is resolved, they announced. James pulled out his phone. Jennifer. Emergency board meeting. Now. Yes, about the acquisition. We have evidence of systematic discrimination and fraud your board needs to see. He hung up. Your board chair is coming down. Think carefully about how you handle this. This is my company, Westbrook whispered. You built it by crushing people who didn't look like you, I said. You built it with discrimination and the certainty no one would hold you accountable. I stepped closer. You were wrong. The elevator chimed. Jennifer Caldwell stepped out, followed by board members. She assessed everything instantly. Westbrook's panic, my credentials, James's team, dozens of recording phones. Conference room, she said sharply. Now. David, bring your attorney. I don't need... Yes, David, you absolutely do. As we walked to the conference room, employees parted but didn't leave. They stayed, watching. Carlos caught my eye. Thank you, he mouthed. Keisha asked, Is justice actually going to happen? Yes, I promised. I swear to you it is. The door closed behind us. The real reckoning had begun. The conference room door closed behind us. 8 board members sat around the table, their faces ranging from confused to concerned. Westbrook slumped in his chair, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Jennifer Caldwell sat at the head of the table. Before we begin, understand this. Either this board was complicit, or we were negligent. Either way, we're responsible. She turned to Catherine. Give us the legal exposure. Catherine opened her binder. Federal discrimination lawsuits under Title VII. State labor violations. Potential securities fraud if the acquisition had proceeded on false representations. Wrongful termination suits. Class action settlement could run 25 to 50 million. Individual cases, another 10 to 15 million. Legal fees substantial. She paused. That's if you fight. The numbers change dramatically if you cooperate. "We're cooperating," Jennifer said immediately. "What do we need to do?" James pulled out a document. Immediate employee support. Systematic investigation and reform. Public accountability and long-term oversight. I took over. You reach out to every discriminated employee. Not with lawyers and NDAs, with genuine apologies and restitution. Wrongfully terminated employees get their jobs back with full back pay. Those passed over for promotion get priority consideration. I slid the list across the table. 23 documented cases. But there are more. You need a confidential reporting system managed by independent third parties. How do we prove there won't be retaliation? A board member asked. You don't prove it with words, I said. You prove it with a victims fund. Real money. Independent oversight. Transparency. James continued. Phase 2. Outside investigation. Someone with a reputation for finding problems, not covering them up. They audit every hiring decision, promotion, termination for 5 years minimum. Interview employees confidentially. Examine pay equity. That's expensive, Robert Pierce said. Not as expensive as years of litigation, Catherine replied, or the reputational damage. What about public accountability? Press conference tomorrow, James said. We present the evidence publicly. Affected employees tell their stories. We explain the reforms. Wait, a board member protested. We need time to prepare. PR consultants. The right message. The right message is the truth, I said firmly. Employees are already contacting media. This is getting out whether you control it or not. Jennifer looked around the table. If we wait, we look guilty. If we lead, we control the narrative. She called for a vote. All in favor of accepting Richardson Global's proposal? 8 hands rose. Unanimous. Now let's talk acquisition terms. The next hour was brutal negotiation. Reduced valuation to account for liability. Richardson Global oversight for 5 years. Independent diversity officer reporting to the board. Quarterly audits mandatory. When they reached the restitution fund, Robert suggested $5 million. I shook my head. $25 million minimum. That's what you saved by systematically underpaying minorities. It's not punishment. It's returning what was stolen. Jennifer cut off Robert's protest. $25 million. Agreed. Catherine presented more evidence. Pay charts showing minorities paid 18% less. Promotion data showing whites advanced every 2.3 years, minorities every 5.7 years. Termination records showing minorities 3 times more likely to be fired. This is systematic, one board member said, horror in his voice. This is policy. Yes, I said. That's why surface changes won't work. You need to rebuild everything from the ground up. Jennifer spoke. We need a new CEO. I'm recommending myself as interim, just until we find permanent replacement. The board voted. Jennifer became CEO immediately. Now the hard part, she said. We talk to employees. Company-wide meeting in 1 hour. But first, I need to apologize to the people Westbrook hurt most. She turned to me. Can you arrange for Keisha, Carlos, Miguel, Diane, Jerome to meet me in 30 minutes? I can, but they're going to be skeptical. I should be angry too, Jennifer said, at myself for not seeing this. They have every right to be furious. The meeting with affected employees was tense. Jennifer sat beside them, not at the head of the table. I'm sorry this company failed you, she said, voice cracking. I'm sorry you filed complaints and were punished. I sat on this board for 3 years and looked the other way. I failed you. Keisha's voice was hard. We've heard apologies before. What's actually changing? Jennifer slid a document across. Everything, in writing. $25 million fund. Independent investigation with public findings. Complete hiring and promotion overhaul. Pay equity audit. And a diversity officer with real power to stop violations. Carlos picked up the document, hands shaking. Why should we believe this? Because Maya and James are watching, Jennifer said. The acquisition includes oversight. If we fail, they pull the deal. We have financial incentive to get this right. She paused. I'm asking for a chance. Not trust, because we haven't earned that, but a chance to prove we're serious. Miguel spoke. What about Westbrook? Criminal investigation likely, Catherine said. Federal prosecutors reviewing evidence. Civil lawsuits. His reputation destroyed. He'll never hold corporate leadership again. Good, Miguel said simply. The meeting continued with hard questions and specific commitments. By the end, employees hadn't forgiven anyone, but they'd agreed to participate in reform. Jerome hung back. I want my job back. As the senior VP, I should have been 2 years ago. Jennifer didn't hesitate. Done. And I want you leading the promotion review process. You know what was wrong. Help us fix it. Jerome smiled for the first time. Monday works. The company-wide meeting filled the auditorium. 300 employees listening as Jennifer explained Westbrook's termination. The evidence, the reforms. She didn't sugarcoat anything. She made commitments publicly, answered hard questions directly. By the end, the mood had shifted. Still angry, still hurt. But maybe, possibly, with a tiny spark of hope. James and I stood at the back. Tomorrow's the press conference, he said quietly. The public reckoning. I nodded. Let the whole world see what happened here, and let David Westbrook face the consequences of underestimating every person he hurt. The downtown Hilton ballroom was packed. Every major outlet had sent crews. CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. The story had exploded overnight. Leaked videos already trending nationwide. You ready? James asked backstage. I nodded, though my heart raced. Behind us, Keisha, Carlos, Miguel, and the others gathered, nervous but determined. Catherine went first, establishing facts with clinical precision. Then I stepped to the podium. My name is Maya Richardson. 3 weeks ago, I worked as a janitor at Westbrook Technologies under the name Marie Wilson. I'm actually an equity partner at Richardson Global and a Harvard-educated attorney. What I witnessed wasn't unconscious bias. It was deliberate, systematic discrimination executed as company policy. I described the separate facilities, the casual dismissals, the hiring decisions that rejected qualified minorities for someone who looks the part. The room was silent, except for camera shutters clicking. We played the video evidence, Westbrook discussing ways to avoid hiring minorities, his plan to hire token diversity candidates and eliminate them after the acquisition, yesterday's lobby assault. The room erupted with gasps and furious typing. Keisha spoke next, calm and devastating. 5 years. 7 times passed over. 6 white colleagues with less experience promoted above me. When I complained, I became difficult and not a culture fit. Carlos described 15 years of invisibility. Miguel, his public humiliation. Diane being told she lacked executive presence. Jerome's 12 years erased with false documentation. One by one, they destroyed any possibility this was about isolated incidents. Jennifer took the podium. What happened at our company was wrong, illegal, and immoral. As a board member, I bear responsibility for not stopping it. She outlined the reforms. $25 million restitution fund, independent investigation, complete overhaul of practices, legally binding commitments overseen by Richardson Global. Questions flew. Then, 40 minutes in, the back doors burst open. David Westbrook walked in with 3 lawyers. Cameras swiveled. Journalists surged forward. Westbrook pushed through until he was near the stage. "This is a witch hunt," he announced. "A coordinated attack by a competitor. Everything is taken out of context. Manipulated. Fabricated." Catherine stood calmly. "Mr. Westbrook, are you denying you said people like you need to know your place to Maya Richardson?" That was taken out of context. I was frustrated. She was lurking around, interfering. "Are you denying you plan to hire token diversity candidates?" "I never said that. The video is edited." Catherine tapped her tablet. The unedited video played on screens behind us. Westbrook's voice, unmistakable. His face went pale. Lawyers pulled at his arms, but he kept talking. Miguel stood. "You humiliated me 3 days ago for asking a question. Do you deny that?" Westbrook looked at him blankly. "I don't know who you are." "Exactly," Miguel said quietly. "That's the problem. A journalist called out about emails discussing quality standards." "Those were private communications," Westbrook protested. "Company emails on company servers," Catherine corrected, "showing clear discriminatory intent." Westbrook floundered. "This is corporate espionage. Richardson wanted my company at a discount." James stood. "Mr. Westbrook, I have no need to manufacture scandals. Yesterday you assaulted my wife while screaming that people like her don't belong. That's you revealing who you are." Lawyers finally dragged Westbrook to the exit. At the doors, he turned back. "You'll all regret this. I'll sue every one of you. You haven't heard the last of me." The doors closed. The room exploded with activity. The story was going viral even as we sat there. Catherine returned to the podium. Mr. Westbrook just demonstrated why this press conference was necessary. His inability to take responsibility, his dismissal of employee experiences, his threats. That's the culture that created this problem. Backstage afterward, Keisha hugged me, crying. "Thank you for giving us a voice." "You always had one," I said. "I just made sure people had to listen." 3 months later, I stood in the executive lobby of Richardson Westbrook Technologies. The same marble floors, the same glass walls. But everything felt different. Employees walked through with their heads up, laughing, chatting freely. The tension had evaporated. Keisha passed by in a sharp suit, now director of finance. She waved, heading to a meeting. Carlos walked with his team, wearing professional uniforms with facilities management badges. He'd been promoted to director with a 20% raise. The transformation had been swift but painful. Media trucks camped outside for weeks. Some employees quit under the scrutiny. Others were fired when investigations uncovered their complicity. Patricia Brennan, the HR director, was arrested 2 weeks after the press conference. Federal charges for fraud and conspiracy. She cooperated with prosecutors, providing documentation that buried Westbrook deeper. And Westbrook himself? His trial lasted 6 weeks. Prosecutors presented everything methodically. Videos, recordings, emails, testimony from 27 employees. His lawyers tried claiming entrapment, inadmissible evidence, context. Nothing worked. The jury deliberated 4 hours, guilty on 12 counts. The judge was unsparing. "Mr. Westbrook, you held immense power. You could have created opportunities. Instead, you deliberately discriminated against talented employees because of their skin color. You violated the law and the trust of everyone who worked for you. 18 months in federal prison, $5 million in fines, lifetime ban from corporate leadership, stock holdings forfeited, His wife filed for divorce. His country club revoked membership. His alma mater returned his donations. David Westbrook, once a Millionaire CEO, was now inmate 47829 at a federal facility in Pennsylvania. I didn't take pleasure in his suffering, but I took satisfaction in the justice. My phone buzzed. Meeting in 10 minutes. I headed to my corner office. Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. Real power. Direct board reporting. $15 million annual budget. A team of 12. Inside, my team reviewed metrics. Pay equity gaps 93% closed. Promotion rates now match demographic pools. Retention up 38%. Employee satisfaction dramatically improved. The independent auditors are coming next week, Sarah reminded me. Good, I said. Transparency maintains accountability. That afternoon was the monthly town hall. Jennifer stood at the podium, announcing record financial results. This quarter's numbers are the strongest in company history. Revenue up 18%. We've been named to Fortune's best companies to work for list. She paused. These results aren't despite our commitment to diversity. They're because of it. When you remove barriers, when you build culture based on merit and respect, business thrives. 3 months ago, this company was collapsing, not just financially, but morally. Today, we're building something better, and it's because people had the courage to speak up. After the town hall, an older black woman from accounting stood. I've worked here 19 years. I've heard many promises about change. Her voice broke. This is the first time I've actually seen it happen. The first time I've felt like I truly belong. The room erupted in applause. Carlos wiped his eyes. Keisha was crying openly. That evening, James picked me up. How was your day? Exhausting, inspiring, hopeful. All of it. As we drove away, I looked back at the building. The sign read, Richardson Westbrook Technologies, Building an Equitable Future. My phone buzzed. An email from a young woman named Alicia at another tech company. She'd seen the documentary. She was experiencing discrimination. She wanted help. I replied immediately, yes. Here's what you need to do, because the work wasn't finished. There would always be another company where discrimination thrived, another group needing someone to fight for them. But now they had proof it was possible. They had a roadmap for fighting back. I smiled, turned back to my screen, and got to work. The fight continued. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, wait until you see what's coming next. It's even more powerful and inspiring than you can imagine. So don't go anywhere. Click on that video showing on your screen right now to dive into another amazing story that will absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, you won't regret it.